Alright guys, so my wife talked me into doing demos at home. First of all, I'm wearing my dad's shirt, so figured you guys would like that. I'm not wearing khakis, however, though. So basically, I'm going to be doing a beef stir fry, and a couple little tricks for you guys to make this quick is you can just do a store-bought teriyaki sauce. You don't need anything fancy with that. I did, however, get bored one day and make my own homemade chicken stock, of course. And actually, we're going to use the rice, the jasmine rice that we used in chicken with white wine sauce. This is the same jasmine rice, really white color, just love the texture, and it puffs up really well. So the thing of it is that with the amount of rice I have, typically I'd be using 3 cups of stock, but I want to actually make a little bit of a creamier sauce, something that has some body to it, and I'm going to be using coconut milk, which has a lot of flavor. And because of the liquid content of this, I'm going to use less stock. That will actually make up for it, create a creamier sauce, but not too liquidy. Alright, so a couple things too that I do is I actually had peppers, onions, and mushrooms. It doesn't look very good, but what I'll do is I'll put them in bags and label them, and I'll do all of it at once. And then separate it out into bags, so then I have stuff for different meals. So if you guys have extra onions laying around, fry up multiple. Cut them all up, fry them up, and then bag them, and that saves you quite a bit. The other thing too is in my pan, so I'm going to turn this on. Get it really, really hot. But I like to use oil and butter. I have a little bit of vegetable oil and butter, and I like to use both because you get the flavor from butter, but you get the really high intensity of heat and smoke point from the oil, and so I like to have both when we do the beef. For the beef, really simple. I actually have the scraps of beef tenderloin. I took a whole tenderloin, trimmed it, and then I take all the trim and cut it into little cubes and put it into here instead of wasting it. Some people will throw it away. Pretty simple. Is a little bit of pepper over the top. We'll mix it in later. Salt. Of course, lots of salt. You guys like my little bowls? I know, I'm a nerd. I got bowls of salt and pepper right next to my kids' vitamins. So, I like to swirl this around my pan. Get the butter and the oil sort of mixed together like that. You'll start to see it bubble and shimmer and everything. I'm just going to bring my beef over, and I'll just stir it up with my hand right here while I've got it right next to the pan. Just stir up the seasoning. Remember, you'll have time to stir it up in the pan anyway. And by the way, at home, I'm a huge proponent of anything you can throw away. So I like paper plates, foam plates, things like that. Make anything cleanup-wise a lot easier. Once my pan gets really hot, I'm going to drop my beef in, and I have my lovely assistant zoom in here.
I don't want to get, it's going to burn me.
No, she's worried about getting burnt. And what's going to happen here is I don't want to have my pan so it's like too crowded. So I'm going to leave a little bit of gapping there. And you want to hear plenty of sizzle. So that's why, again, I have my heat pretty high. And I'm actually not going to cook this all the way through, because I'm going to cook it the rest of the way in the rice afterwards, and after I add all my vegetables and things like that. So realistically, it's a little bit like when you grill. I tell you guys all the time not to move the meat. You don't want to immediately stir this around. You actually want to get a little browning on the bottom, then move it around. All right. So now I've been cooking the beef for a little while, and it will start to brown up. It's not quite toasted all the way, but one of the tricks you want to do is after a short period of time, especially with beef, you want to make sure that you get some of the extra fat off. And one of the ways I like to do that is, and just keep your heat, pretty high. You can turn it down a little bit, but just grab a glass bowl, take your spoon or whatever you've got, and just take off some of the excess fat. What it does is it actually helps it brown up. You don't need to take it all off, just some. Hold back again some of the beef. If you have a gas stove, make sure it doesn't drip down the side or it can catch on fire. Put it back on your stove. And one of the things I'm going to do is actually use the teriyaki sauce. The reason why I have it is, yes, it's flavor, but I want the teriyaki sauce not to be in my rice where it's going to turn it brown. I want it to be on my beef where it's going to caramelize and create like a syrupy consistency on the outside. And it tastes really good because there's lots of sugar in teriyaki sauce, soy sauce, things like that. and you can actually get a ton of caramelization, and it's super good to put on top of rice to get that like sweet, spicy, salty, depending on what you put in. My kids don't like spicy, so I'm not going to put any extra kick in. But if you did, you could put cayenne pepper, or you could put a jalapeno or something like that if you like it. But otherwise, you can just keep it sweet with this. I'm going to pour off just a tiny bit more fat. Careful when you do this that you don't drop a bunch of it. I've done that before. The reason why I put it in the glass too is because it'll cool down and then you can just put it in the trash. Don't ever put this down your sink. Clog it up. Parents will be mad at you. By the way too, I have my stock up to a boil. I'm going to drop my rice down in. Get that cooking. Just give it a quick stir with the same spoon that you had. Just give it a stir. Once you give it a little bit of a stir, turn your heat way down. Put your lid back on and just let that cook. Alright, now I got plenty of heat on this, really hot. Teriyaki sauce in. Just eyeball it depending on the amount of beef that you have. I probably could have put about 1/4 of a cup in. And leave your heat on high. Again, you're trying to reduce it down and create a little bit of like a syrupy consistency. As soon as it gets syrupy and you start coating the beef, then just shut your heat off and let it cool down, and eventually everything will be added in together. During the time where you're creating the syrup, you do want to at least start by stirring it quite a bit so everything gets coated. But once the beef gets coated, by the way, it smells really good. Once it starts getting coated, then you can sort of just let it sit in it, put it in that layer again, and just let it really, really boil down. Alright, so the beef is to the point where it's got that caramelization on the outside, and that's coated on the beef, which is great, but I want to then just introduce my vegetables. Again, they're not going to look good because they were in the refrigerator and all the fat that's in them has sort of seized up, but I can then take those vegetables.
Fat is in vegetables.
Well, it's the butter.
Oh.
It's actually the butter that you cook them in. There's quite a bit of fat. And it gets soaked up, in this case, by the mushrooms, peppers, and onions that I have. So now that I have the coating on the beef, I'm not worried about what else I introduce into it. So all I'm doing now is just warming the vegetables through, so then when I add the rice later, I basically am good to go. It's already warmed through, heated up, because it's already pre-cooked. So again, I'll just let this warm up. That releases the fat, gets everything sort of coated, and now you see a mixture that looks like it's all sort of the same consistency. So I'm not going to be able to show you guys the full completed plated dish or anything like that, but I wanted to at least go through a few things, and I'll post a picture of what it looks like on a plate. So come on into the rice. I just had it cooking for a little while, and it's not done, and it's purposely not done. Because remember, I don't have enough liquid in there, but I still have some. What I want to do is impart some flavor of that coconut milk, and you don't have to do the coconut milk, you just do all broth if you didn't like the taste of it. And if you didn't want it to be creamy and you wanted the rice to be fluffy, you could just add the extra stock and cook it as is. But before it gets all the way done, I'm going to add some of my coconut milk in. And again, it sort of looks chunky and weird. Shake it up before you use it. Cool. And I'm going to use about 1/2 of a can, and yeah, it does. It looks pretty gross. It actually looks like it's like something's wrong with it. That's because of all the coconut fat that settles out. But as it melts, you'll notice that it'll get really smooth. And I'm gonna stir this up. And then the other thing I want to do is in Chinese, Japanese cuisine, basil is pretty popular. They use Thai basil. I just have dried, but it adds a little color, a little bit of flavor. Just eyeball it, throw some in. That flavors your rice a little bit. At this point in time, after it's cooked for a little while, is when you want to add just a pinch of salt, but not too much. Because remember, you got your teriyaki sauce that has a lot of salt. Give it a stir, just to incorporate a little bit. See how much creamier it is, right? Which is what I was saying in the first place that I wanted it to be. Head out, put your lid back on. Let it cook all the way until your rice is completely done, finished, and to the right texture that you want. Some people like a little more bite on it. And then basically you're gonna plate the rice, put some of the beef on top. That'll be heated back up. And that's your dish.